In this review, I'm going to cover this new model, which is the LT series made by Compustar. This is the model CS700S. Now, this model here is replacement of the CS600S that was the predecessor, which is the 2012 to the earlier part of 2013 model. This one, which is right now is December of 2013, this is going to be their model going from now forward through 2014. Now, in this model, you have two of the remote controls, very much like the older ones, a little bit more chunky than the older ones, but also have slightly better range. These are AM-based transmitters. These are the G6 series. So if you notice that the button icons laid out pretty much the same. I'll try to give you a close-up. You can see on the top left you have the lock, and if you hold it for 3 seconds it'll give you the panic or car locator feature. Top right is your unlock, trunk or hatch release right there on the bottom left, and the snowflake, that's going to be a remote start. These buttons are non-configurable, obviously, because you can see that the icons are permanently laid out in the remote control. But they are very nice. 1,000 foot of range is not too bad. So for an entry-level piece, as a freestanding, all-in-one keyless entry with remote start and auxiliary outputs, that's all you need. And they're very stylish. They're nice. I like them. They're a good, solid remote control. They make a good click. I mean, you can tell that you really got a good little remote here in your hand, and that's good. So with that said, let's move along, see what else we got over here. This here is the 8-pin power ignition harness, which is pretty standard. It's been very standardized for Compustar over the years. And what you have in here is, of course, you have your powers, you have your ground, your parking light, fuse positive output for your parking lights, by the way, because I'm also going to talk about the negative one that's also included in this package. You have two ignitions. One is selectable, so you can actually make it a second ignition, a second accessory, or a second starter wire, depending on your requirements. Or you don't have to utilize it at all if you don't need it. But you do have accessory, ignition, starter output, your two power inputs, ground, parking lights, like I mentioned prior, and that's pretty much it. You also note that there's an omission of a relay here, because in their higher end systems, like their G9, their Prime systems, or their Pro systems, they have a starter kill relay, which you can also be utilized for an anti-grind. So that way when you remote start your vehicle, you can't get in there and accidentally re-crank your starter because the relay would interrupt it. This system is omitted. So if you wanted to add anti-grind to this system, you'd have to purchase an additional relay. Not a big deal, but that's how you do it. They did give you plenty of outputs to do that feature, and I'll get to that in a second. Aside from that, we also have this here hood pin switch, which is nice. Plastic on the inside, metal encased on the outside. Lots of washers, lots of lock nuts, lots of cool little hardware. A good little lead to run this from underneath your hood to where the remote starter is. So that way when you're in your car and your hood is down, the remote start will engage normally. If you raise your hood, this connects and sends ground signals to the remote start, not allowing it to remote start. So that way you can never hurt yourself with the remote start, or a mechanic or a valet or whoever is under your hood. Antenna, pretty standard. This is the same one they've used in last year's model and the one prior, which is the AM. The model is ANT-1 WAM, which means one-way AM transmission, 4-pin plugs on both sides. So if you're utilizing the older model and you're upgrading to the newer one, you wouldn't even have to swap out the antenna. That would be a straight deal. Unplug it, plug it right in, there you go. This here is going to be your primary harness for all your remote start connections, which I'm going to get to in another moment. This one here is right next to it, and as well, I want to talk about that. But before we get to that, let me also go over this. This company here, which is called Fortin, they make a whole bunch of stuff. Great bypass kits, by the way, excellent. Now, Compustar actually owns this company, and their stuff works directly with it. And I'll show you how. This one here is their most popular model. It's called an Evo All. It's a self-learning system. You don't have to even flash it. It's already pre-programmed to vehicles. Just wire it in, turn it on, and it learns through the CAN bus. Just that easy. See that? Plugs right in here, and you even have another plug right over here. So if you wanted to utilize this with a iData link brand bypass, you could do that too. So not a bad deal. Getting back to this module, the 4-pin blue plug, that's for your antenna. That's for the RS-232, which I just showed you for the bypass module. The 8-pin, which is this guy over here, and these two plugs, which are these two over here. And real quick, we'll go through what we have in here. The big plug we already talked about. On the smaller plug, of course, you're going to have your regular stuff, which is going to be your door locks. You have lock, unlock output, trunk release output. but they give you some stuff that you don't expect to see, which is a second starter output, status output, or GWR, ground when running output, which is nice to have, factory disarm output, hood pin input, trigger input for an external remote start if you want to use this for a slave remote start. If you wanted to use this without the remote controls, you can actually program it to do a single, double, or a triple pulse to use activation input for, you know, I should have said that a little bit. If you have a factory remote control and you wanted to use this system without the remote controls and use the factory remote as your remote controls, you can program the setting in here to make this thing start without the use of the remotes and the antennas in the system, and use the existing remotes that came with your car by doing it lock lock, lock unlock lock, or lock 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 for 3 pulses. However you have it set for the system, that's how it's going to remote start. That's what I was trying to say. I don't know why it's so hard to say it, but that's what I was trying to say. So that's all that. You have your TAC input. This thing's already set for voltage sensing, so if your car rests at 11.5, 12 volts, when it's at rest, car starts and it runs up to 13.5, 14 volts, whatever the story is. This is smart enough to actually do that job and do it without the use of a TAC wire. So if you have a car that's hard to find a TAC, or you have a problematic type of diesel wire and you're having a hard time finding a glow plug, that's okay. They have a fix for that, and it's set by the factory to do exactly just that. So it's very installer friendly in that respect. You also have a negative light output, you have a second accessory output, you have a rearm output, and as well as a horn output. So if you wanted to have audible as well as visual outputs and confirmations that the remote start is locking, unlocking, opening the trunk, and remote starting, you can get both with this system. Foot brake input, which is of course the brake pedal. Once you have the remote start on, you get into your car, you would do the key takeover by putting the key in, depressing the brake, the remote start will shut down, and the car will remain staying running on the key power, of course. That's what that wire there is for. The trigger start input, that's the one I was trying to explain. Could have done better, but that's what that wire is for. In most scenarios, you're not going to use that wire because the guy who's buying the system is wanting to have a all-in-one standalone system, just using these remote controls and have the extended range. That's most likely the guy that's going to buy this, and I'm sure that's probably you, but it's my job to review and I have to be thorough, so I try to explain it. Everything else is pretty much what I've already talked about. The RS-232, which is for your bypasses and your antenna input. Your jumpers, which are inside here. This is how you change the extra wire on your ignition output harness to do second starter, second accessory, or second ignition. You just move this jumper and put it in the correct location, and that's how it is. You'll also notice that there's a lack of a loop because these LT series or CS series do not work with manual transmissions. They're not designed to. They're designed to just do automatic and diesels. I wouldn't recommend that you use it for that purpose unless you really know what you're doing. And I'm not going to tell you that you can't do it because I'm not your mom, and I've done it many times, but then again, I know what I'm doing. If you do, go for it. If not, take my warning, don't use it. Go out and get yourself the step-up piece, which would be the oh geez, for 2013, I mean, anything that's going to be what's called the Prime series, they call it now, or the Pro series, if you're blessed enough to get yourself your hands on one of those Pro series. Actually, if you're going to go for a Pro series, why would you even be watching this video? Because this is totally the opposite end of the spectrum for a Pro series. But the Prime series would be your other choice, and that would be a system that's made specifically to be utilized with a manual transmission, and that's what I'm going to recommend you do, because that's the right thing for me to tell you what to do. As far as settings, there's 2 ways you can do it. Now, you can use an OP500, which is a programmer, which you could purchase for this and program any Compustar system, regardless of what it is. Or you could just do it the hard way, through the remote control and the key. And some of the settings that Compustar has built into this system is you can adjust the locks. You could have it, you know, just normal. You could have it send a signal before and after start, one or the other, or both. You could have the door lock pulse duration, so if you have a vehicle that needs double pulse unlock, like a Nissan or something like that, or Mercedes, vacuum locks, etc., this system is capable of doing that feature. You can adjust the crank time for the remote start. You can do driver's priority locking, so that way when you get into your car, you hit lock, all the doors lock. When you hit unlock, it would just unlock your driver's door. You hit the same button again, and it would do all the passenger doors. That's called priority unlocking. Pulse trigger, which again is, I don't even want to bother talking about it anymore. Diesel timer, which is going to keep your ignition on for X amount of time before it attempts to crank, because you need that for your glow plugs, as you know, for diesel guys. your remote start runtime, you can have 4 settings. As far as your remote start runtimes, you can have a choice of 3 minutes, 15, 25, or 45 minutes. You can also do a cold start feature mode, which will basically start your vehicle every few hours for the prolonged length of time that you have your remote start length set for. So if you have it set for 15 minutes, it will start your car for 15 minutes every 3 hours. Also has ignition control door locks. When you get in your car, you turn your key on, it'll lock the doors. While you're driving, you turn the car off, it'll unlock the doors so you can get out safely, which is a nice feature. I like that one. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I mean, this is the 700S model. It's a great piece. Just because it's entry level does not mean it's bare bones and stripped down. It's a nice piece. It's reliable. It's easy to install, and the service is good. Compustar is good people. They're a good company. It's good. So if you're looking for a good remote start, give this one a good look at, because I definitely think it's worth a consideration. So there's your review, CS700S. As I was trying to say before my camera decided to cut me off, the buttons on these transmitters are nice because they, like I was saying, they have a nice hard click. Like when you step on a cockroach, it's nice. I like that. And the good news is that they have big enough pads so that way a man can use it pretty effortlessly. And I think that they're also soft and pliable enough that would definitely appease a woman. And I think that that's a big thing. So if you're looking to give one of these as a gift, or just something nice that you're considering to give to your wife, and you know how women are, they're a little nutty with things that they like to have in their hands. They're very, very much about physical appearance. So this, I think, would appease. I like that. Now, going forward on this system, if you were going to ever want to have a system that's a two-way system, say if you had the system now and it's one way and it's working great for you, if you ever wanted to update the system and make it a two-way, understand that that is not going to be a reality for you, because with these systems, it's not like the Prime series. We could just swap out the antenna, get the new kit, and reprogram the transmitters, and it's a wrap. These systems are a little bit less sophisticated. So if you're going to choose a system and it's going to be your lifetime companion in your car, be happy with it being that way, because this should never really be looked at as anything else. That's what the Prime series or the Pro series is designed to be used for. So I think we covered most of that stuff except for the connections. So getting technical now, let's just see what this guy's got. You have, aside from everything I showed you on the 8-pin parking light and power accessory ignition, you have a second parking light output, which is these are all transistorized 250 milliamp outputs, by the way. Second accessory output, rearm output, horn output, which I already talked about. Foot brake input, which is going to defeat the remote start once the brake is depressed. Trigger start input, which is not really a big deal, but if down the road you ever rip this system out and you wanted to put it into another car, and you didn't want to use it as a freestanding system with the remote controls, you can program this system to remote start by 1, 2, or 3 pulses externally. That's what that wire is all about, in a nutshell. Siren output, self-explanatory, of course. Door trigger input, which has a selectable input through the jumper, which I showed you on the other side of the module. Auxiliary 1 and 2 input and auxiliary 1 and 2 outputs. Again, all transistorized outputs. Moving down the line, starter output, status output, disarm output, all transistorized outputs. You notice there's a lot of transistorized outputs. Hood pin input, that's a direct ground, which I showed you with the hood pin switch. Tach sensing input, this system is set for voltage sensing out of the box, which works really well. Very reliable, very easy, very installer friendly, very painless. So if you have a diesel, you can set your weight to start up. You can have it set on voltage sense, and if your truck's resting at 11.5, 12 volts, and the remote starts goes up to about 13, 13.5, whatever the case is, this thing learns, works fantastically well. If you have a tach, these systems will learn tach, injectors, high voltage, low voltage. I've seen them work with all kinds of things. They're very easy on you when it comes to that kind of stuff, so that's a good thing. So these are the kind of things that you're never going to know about when you just see it and you see a picture. You don't really know what you're getting into. Is this system going to make my life a living hell? Is it going to work great? Trust me, people, Compustar is a good product. It's a winner. The stuff is tried and true. It works. The service is good. The people that work at this company are very nice. If you choose to use one of their bypasses, inside they give you a free card with a code, so you can go into Wiresheet and get photographs, locations, wire colors for your specific installation application, which is excellent. So if you're looking for one, go this route. Aside from that, this system will do everything. Your locks, pulse time, you can do Your runtime, you can have it set for 3 minutes, 15, 30 minutes, up to 45 minutes. It has a cold start feature, so if you're in a super Arctic climate, you can have your vehicle start itself every 3 hours, which is very cool. If you need selectable outputs for your door locks, for Nissans, vacuum lock systems, all that stuff's built into it. If you have a factory alarm you're integrating with it, all the transistorized outputs that are built into the system are all there for you. So it's a great system, especially for the money. It's a really good deal. So we have these. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I hope it was fulfilling. But if you find that there's a question I left unanswered and you really want some help with it, just shoot me a message. Let me know what's going on, what's up. And if you did like the video, give me a like, subscribe, because there's always new stuff. I'm always talking about everything that's always coming out. So this is the place to get the information. So there you go. There's a CS700-S.